Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us in the DoD CIO Theater. We have today the DoD Enterprise Cloud Environment, a discussion with senior leadership. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Rob Wiedemeyer, Chief Software Officer. Thank you.
Working as a stage.
Okay, so am I live? We here? Okay, perfect. So thanks for joining everyone for this panel, and thanks for AFCEA for hosting this event. I think the theme is right on, right? We're now on this panel talking about cloud and the next steps. So we have JWCC in place finally, and now looking at the next steps. Where have we been? Where are we now? And where are we going? When we look at the call to action, that's the theme of this conference, with a focus on alignment, readiness, and working together as we move forward. So I think this is a great opportunity to engage, because it's not just the department, it's not just the intelligence community that's going to be driving us forward. We can't do this without our partnerships with industry, with academia, with our allies, and our federal partners. So I hope we have a distinguished panel here, and I hope you'll take this opportunity to, we'll introduce them, but I think many of them are staying around through much of the conference, and can engage with them and looking at opportunities as we move forward. So with that, let me introduce the panel, and I'll start with my boss down at the far end, Ms. Lily Zlicki. She is the Deputy CIO for the Information Enterprise in the DoD CIO. In this role, she promotes oversight, policy, guidance, and the digital experience for the DoD enterprise infrastructure initiatives, driving towards objectives of digital modernization. Areas of priority include network optimization, cloud adoption, software modernization, and defense business systems. Prior to her current role as the Deputy CIO for the Information Enterprise, she was responsible for the management of the DoD CIO's processes for PPBE, or programming, planning, budgeting, and execution, and oversight of the DoD CIO operating budget. Next to her, Ms. Venus Goodwine. Ms. Goodwine is the Director of Enterprise Information Technology within the Office of the CIO for the Department of the Air Force. In this role, she leads management, planning, governance, and resourcing for enterprise IT for the department's nearly $7 billion information and cybersecurity enterprise. She has more than 28 years of information technology experience spanning private industry, active and reserve military service, and the federal civilian government. Next, Ms. Jane Rathbun. So Ms. Rathbun currently serves as the acting Department of Navy CIO, driving continuous improvement and innovation in the Department of Navy's information technology portfolio, valued at $12 billion. So I'm hearing a lot of billions in this. So vendors on the floor, you're setting up your targets right now. $12 billion in this role, she ensures alignment of the IT investment priorities with SecNav priorities and guides the execution of the Department of Navy's information superiority vision, focused on modernizing, innovating, and defending enterprise and business IT systems. She plays a key advocacy role for the Department of Navy in cyber IT workforce initiatives and oversees Department of Navy internal operations. Key focus areas include cyber readiness, zero trust architecture, optimizing transport diversity through commercial technology, SIPR 2.0, and movement to the cloud in enterprise service delivery. And finally, Mr. Dave Salvagnini. So, joining us from the intelligence community now. He is the Director of the Intelligence Community Chief Information Officer, Architecture and Integration Group, and the Chief Architect. In this role, he works with the intelligence community elements to ensure Five Eyes enterprise international partner and development and implementation of reference architectures and interoperability, data sharing, and technical advancement of IT infrastructure, data services, and other foundational capabilities. He is responsible for defining and implementing the emerging enterprise architecture to address mission gaps and overlaps, critical linkages and dependencies, and driving efficiencies across the IC information environment encompassing all security fabrics. So with that, let's start at the end with Ms. Lily Zlicki, and I'll let you give a quick update on your priorities and objectives as we're moving forward. Thank you.
All right, is this mic on? Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm also honored to be on this stage with my partners in crime, or I should say partners in goodness.
Yes.
I really appreciate being on the stage with these ladies and that gentleman, because we are actually really partnering on many different fronts. As you heard, Rob, I think, described my portfolio that I work, cloud, software, defense business systems, and really all of this translating to the user experience as well as the cybersecurity posture of our department, and modernizing the digital enterprise. Why is that important? Because unlocking the potential of data and information, getting information technology to enable that, and then getting that information seamlessly across the department from CONUS to the tactical edge is an imperative. The fight now is not just in person or a weapons fight. It is information and cyber domain fight. So I just want to say that how critical it is that what we do, what these ladies and Dave in our department does, is an imperative right now. Joint warfighting cloud capability is one of the critical capabilities that we have enabled right now to bring all these critical capabilities to bear. And I really appreciate the partnership we had with the Air Force. And we were hoping Army would be here as well, but they weren't able to make it. The Navy and the IC community to enable this multi-cloud, multi-vendor capability at the unclass, secret, top secret fabric to be able to bring all of these technologies that we are talking about. And the other piece I want to mention before I hand it over is really technical debt is one of our challenges that we must address, where maybe not necessarily everything we have can move to the cloud and be able to be accommodated in that regard. So that's one of our challenges that we work within my portfolio. So I'll hand it over back to Rob.
Ms. Goodwine.
Yes. So good morning. I'm excited here to represent Department of the Air Force. We are definitely excited about our new role, One Department, Two Services. So having you can't hear me? They can't hear me.
Get the mic closed.
Now you can hear me. Oh, you want my outside voice? Oh, I can do that. Let's have one of my kids misbehave. So good morning. So I'm excited to be here to represent Department of the Air Force. We are excited about our role, One Department, Two Services. So when I speak today, I will talk from a Space Force perspective as well as Air Force. And you'll hear that a lot of our portfolios are the same. The things that the DoD care about, of course, I care about as well. You're going to hear me talk about CIPR 2.0, Zero Trust, even our compliance with FIAR, make sure that we can have a clean audit soon, and then our tech debt as well. But how do I use the cloud to help me with all of that? You'll hear me say that data is the currency of the realm. And what I mean by that is I have to make sure that the data is available, is accessible, it's where it needs to be, that the data can be actionable. And so for all of that, I will need the cloud to do that. And so not only am I enabling from a business perspective in the back office, making sure those things happen, but also when you're a MilDep, you have to worry about the fight tonight. And so we care about that as well. And the tactical edge is relevant. If I'm Space Force, the tactical edge is ground systems here in CONUS, but it could be if you're in Indo-Pacific or you're in Europe, the tactical edge could be in those countries, but also including our coalition partners. So we'll talk about that mission partner environment and how JWCC is going to help us get those capabilities at the tactical edge. In technical debt, we talk about it, but every year, year upon year, it's going to grow. So how do I use the cloud so that I can leap over some of that technical debt? How do I use zero trust to do that as well. So I'm excited today to talk about what the Air Force is going to do with our Advanced Battle Management System, ABMS, our contribution, the Air Force's contribution to JADC2. So over to you, Jay.
Ms. Ruthven.
Bueller. Okay, we're good. Sorry, I couldn't resist, especially since the microphone did not work for Venus initially. Good morning, everybody. Jane Rathbun, Department of Navy, Acting CIO, and welcome to the realm of having two services, one military department. It makes it exciting. In particular, how to work together and architect solutions that are going to work for the Navy and Marine Corps where they need to, and are going to be unique for the Navy and Marine Corps when they need to. My top right-hand board in my office has 3 initiatives on it. They are Cyber Ready, SIPR 2.0, and Last Mile. Cloud is critical in many of those things. On the Cyber Ready front, we are looking to move away from this compliance mindset and into a earning the right to operate every day mindset, and building cybersecurity into our systems, our enclaves, our platforms, having continuous monitoring, having adversarial threat assessment, and having trained people who know that they are cyber sentries, and every day they need to work towards earning that right. Big culture change there. A lot of the things that we are doing are about culture change in the Department of Navy and how we operate. Last Mile, our efforts there are focused on customer user experience and cyber resiliency. And how do we get out of decades of networks that are inefficient and ineffective at delivering IT capabilities to our warfighters and to our acquirers and to our everybody in between. And so where we're focused there is looking to leverage commercial technology, bypass some of our own networking to get right to the cloud faster, and speed relevance with the delivery of IT capabilities. Big projects there include our Azure Virtual Desktop, so never really having to touch our networks, going straight to the cloud, going straight to a commercial provider. Another big move for us is getting to the point where you can all order your computers from a big box store, have it delivered, and then type in a web address and get your entire image downloaded right then and there. No more military pipeline, no more logistics pipeline inside the Department of Navy. That is our future state of delivering capability, working IT to our customer base. And the last, the SIPR 2.0 area is one that I'm really excited about. We want to take a parallel path there. We want to look at first of all, our state of our SIPR is abominable. I'll just say that. It's a lot of SIPR nets, none of them connected, none of them architected, none of them thinking through really what the warfighter needs at the edge. And so what we want to do there is we want to do that architecture. We want to leverage cloud to the greatest extent possible because we do want to do tactical edge computing. We want to take our big data environments, apply history and context, push that data to the edge, allow it to consume new data off of sensors, and give warfighters decision-making advantage right at the edge. Can we do that today? Not eloquently, but I do think that there are opportunities here in networking, leveraging commercial technology like our proliferated low Earth orbit capabilities, working with our cloud providers who really have thought through many of these hard problem sets and have them work with us to think through our hard problem sets and deliver solutions. JWCC as a contracting vehicle is going to be beneficial to us because it allows us to access all of the major cloud providers instantly and sets us up for a stronger partnership with them. Key focus area, the other key focus area in cloud for us is really coming up with that enterprise architecture that is going to work from the foxhole to the flagpole. That's it.
Yeah. Mr. Salvanini.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Dave Salvanini. I am with the ICCIO, Chief Architect, and I run a group called the Architecture Integration Group. So there's a couple things I'll share with you with relationship to the IC. One, I will say my presence on this panel here is a representation of the partnership that DoD and the IC share. we realize that there's absolutely nothing that we can do any longer in our environment that's hyper-converged in isolation. So as such, we have a strong commitment from John Sherman and Dr. Adele Merritt on down through the organization to work together. And we do so on a regular basis in so many areas. So thank you for having me today. A couple things we're working on, and you will hear a lot of similarities. Multi-cloud, of course. Reason why we're looking at multi-cloud is because we believe we have to get this right. There's so much beauty in the many, many choices that we have before us under the C2E contract, under the JWCC vehicle. That said, those choices, if not well planned and executed, can create some problems for us. So I think multi-cloud for us is really about understanding that landscape, and it's really about making good decisions at the front end so we don't create problems for ourselves later on. We don't want to look back 2 years from now and think to ourselves, well, only if we would have made these decisions sooner, we would have fewer problems. We don't want to go backwards as it relates to integration. Zero trust. Zero trust is huge. Zero trust is another thing that requires a very close partnership, not only between ICDOD, but also across all the various equities within any organization. And we're driving the zero trust journey for the IC out of my office in partnership with the CISO, doing so with the 7-pillar model that has been well published within both DoD and will be soon published within the IC as well. Actually is part of the NSS documentation. So we're driving that, we're driving maturity, we're driving plans towards each level of maturity, and we're driving measures so that we understand how the IC is progressing in that journey, and we can help them as they move forward. Cybersecurity is the other element to this, one of the third priorities within the ICCIO. And really what this is it's covering down on those things that aren't necessarily addressed by zero trust. Multi-fabric, some of the DevSecOps types of things that we need to do to have assurance in our software delivery and our security, our DevOps pipelines, etc. So that's an important ingredient. And then also the cyber operations piece of this. How do we detect malicious activity, and how do we get the right triggers to the right people in a timely manner so that they can be acted upon? Workforce, of course. We are in a talent competition with across government, but also with industry, and if there wasn't ever more a need for critical skills and talent, it is now because of the complexity. So we are keenly aware of the need to look at talent retention, recruitment, and also upskilling and reskilling the workforce that we have before us today. Without addressing that, we will not be successful in the other three areas. And then the last, of course, is partnerships. And when we talk about partnerships, we do so in a manner that's similar to everyone else. And that is, we look at academia, we look at industry, and we look at cross-government as well. And then we also work very closely with foreign partners, both Five Eyes and beyond the Five Eyes. And we do so architecturally, we do so in our security efforts, etc. A couple things specific to my office that fit within that set of 5 priorities. 5-year roadmap initiative. Building, so the statute for the DNI basically says we're responsible for creating an as-is, a to-be, and a transition plan for architecture. So the 5-year roadmap is basically the future state and the transition plan. It's the temporal representation of how we're going to get to what that future state is defined as. And what we're looking to do with that is not have it as a static document that gets looked at once and we check a box and say, oh, there it is, good work, but rather the decision aid that all of our leaders need, our CFO, our director, and alike, our element CIOs, on how do they make and how they shape their investments of IT. So the 5-year roadmap is something that we look to release this summer, and we look to update it from this point perpetually on an annual basis, because a 5-year roadmap as a snapshot in time quickly loses its value because of the rate of change in our environment. We're working cross-domain and enterprise cross-domain. This is a big problem area for us, and we need to get a hold of how we move our data between our network fabrics and make sure we do it in a way that is more secure than is currently accomplished. We're working AI initiatives with a program called AIM Unity, Augmenting Intelligence with Machine, and Unity is specific to the pacing threat around China. We're working some special access program integration between DoD and the IC so that our senior decision makers have access to the key information that they need, regardless of whether it's sourced from the IC or whether it's sourced from DoD. And of course, we're looking at our CDCI pipeline and our DevSecOps practices and making sure that we have consistency across the IC as well. So I think that's a good opener to get us started. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I have a few questions for the panelists, and then we'll open it up for the floor if there's questions out there. Folks that noticed that the Army's missing, and despite what the panelists were talking about the Army in the green room, I'm not going to repeat that, but the Army is a key partner with us moving forward, so even though they're not represented here. Okay, so this focus on enterprise cloud and the recent award for JWCC. Ms. Selecki, I know that's in your portfolio. So how are we going to move the department forward with cloud and JWCC and implement it for use?
Well, thank you, Rob, for that question. So first step was to award the contract, which was not a small feat. So it took a massive lift across the department. Partnering with these folks as well as the IC was a key part in enabling that award. So that was the first step. Now we got to get organized amongst ourselves, and that doesn't just happen, naturally. We have to put structure around it. And again, we're working with our partners to make sure that we put the right governance, the right guidance in order to be able to guide this. Why is that important? We've learned so much from what the military departments are doing with cloud. This is not our first, initial cloud contract. We've been doing cloud for years and years. So we've taken all the best practices and really, honestly, the gaps that we have, like tactical edge, multi-cloud, multi-vendor, direct access to the CSPs, and we've put it together to bring some goodness for the entire department. So that requires really work to be able to sort of look after that and make sure that that's used at an enterprise level, and that's where we come in, really, the DoD CIO and the Deputy CIO for Information Enterprise, my group. We're going to organize with our partners to make sure that we put the right enterprise level guidance, the right policies if necessary, to enable the use of this contract to get the best possible value, whether it's cost or commercial parity or any additional capabilities that we need to be able to use this cloud contract to the best and maximum possible. And without them, we can't do it. So that's what we're doing, putting structure in place. In addition, we're going to really do a more organized look at our entire cloud portfolio. What do we have in the entire department? We're going to have to really baseline where we're at right now. And then, honestly speaking, I know you hear the word rationalize. We're going to have to look across to make sure that we're not duplicating contract efforts. We're not we're optimizing to the best possible our use and really your tax dollars. So that's what we're doing, putting structure in place to make sure that we use the contract to the best maximum possible, but also really look across our department. We think we know, but we're going to have to really baseline, rationalize, and optimize what we currently have so we can start optimizing and using the enterprise cloud JWCC. And if my partners here have anything to add, Rob may give them opportunities.
Yeah, I'll add to that. And so a couple of things I want to add to that is, one, when we asked the question, what was one of our successes in cloud, I was going to say JWCC. And the reason being is because the DoD CIO did not do that in a vacuum.
That's right.
It was a collaborative partnership with the MILDEPs and the DAFAs to make sure that the requirements were included across the Department of Defense. So thank you definitely for that partnership and that input. But if you look at it from a CIO perspective, right, in its core, CIO cares about efficiency, effectiveness, buying power,
right.
and making sure that they understand in that Title 40 role, where is the data? How do I protect the data? And then you switch to the CISO side, right? Understanding the attack surface. And so when you put all that together, JWCC makes sense. But we also recognize as a military department that we have our own cloud. We have Cloud One. We just celebrated our 100 app being migrated, and we expect to triple that just this year, because just in the pipeline at different stages, we have almost 200 apps ready to be migrated. And so that goes back to that efficiency piece, because now it allows me to modernize. And I can do that when I have a landing zone in a cloud that allows me to do that. And I do it well in Cloud One at the unclassed level with all 4 of the vendors today in a multi-vendor cloud environment. And so JWCC is going to give me that multi-security level that I'm looking for. And so that's key and parcel for us. And so that partnership and that better buying power. And there's something to be said about when the whole department wants to move industry in a certain direction as well. I could move industry as a single partner, as a MILDEP, but when I bring all my partners with me, there's something to be said about that. And so JWCC does give us the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Ms. Rathman, so looking at cloud and from a MILDEP perspective, when we see the Navy environment, right, the afloat environment, the shore environment, it's got to be one of the most complex environments for cloud. So how do you see cloud playing in the Navy environment?
Okay, so cloud is a critical component. Let's talk about IT as not being that thing that you do is sweep up dollars at the end of the year anymore, and actually treating it as a strategic asset. And when I say treating it as a strategic asset, then cloud as a platform is a critical capability that we need to optimize. Our information superiority vision kind of mantra is the right information securely moved anywhere, any place, any time, for the right reason. And so we need to think about the architecture of moving data first. So if I need to get data somewhere, how am I going to do that effectively, efficiently, at the speed of relevance to the need? All of those things have to dictate our thought and our process of architecting cloud to optimize for the warfighter at the tactical edge, to optimize cloud for the acquirer, to optimize cloud for the readiness folks. We have opportunity to utilize a hybrid cloud, as my Intel partner has articulated. That is our approach as well. But to think about, from a business side, how to optimize the utilization of those clouds. Do I put all my business mission area workload into a common cloud because I have to do a lot of transacting between the financial systems and the log systems, for example? What's the optimal way to architect that? How am I going to get data at the tactical edge in a cloud environment so that I can do that quick learning on new data, new sensor data, and add it back into the calculus for the decision maker? All of those questions cause us to say, I know I've got cloud, pause me and say, I've got cloud, I've got a lot of cloud options, but what is our ConOps for cloud? And I think that is where we're headed right now, especially with our CIPR 2.0 discussions. Less about network, more about moving data, leveraging all of these great tools that are out there to be able to deliver effects.
Mr. Salvanini, so from the intelligence community, your opening statements, you mentioned AI, machine learning. How's the cloud playing in the AI space?
Yes, so thank you for that question, Rob. This is a very exciting time for so many of our citizen data scientists, citizen developers, when you have access to some of the cloud capabilities that are being delivered. And now that we've changed the dynamic from a single cloud provider to upwards of 5 cloud providers, depending on which network environment you're operating in within the IC, that makes it even more exciting. So let's think about AI for a second, and let's think about what it used to be like and compare it to what it's like today. If you imagine going back 5 or more years, what an organization would have had to have done is they would have had to build their entire AI pipeline independently, okay, of the cloud. They would have had to build it on-prem. They would have had to select a whole host of tools, and they would have had to figure out how to integrate all of that. No longer the case, because our cloud providers have done that for us quite eloquently. Each one has uniqueness, and that's okay, but they've done it quite eloquently. So if you think about an AI pipeline, if you think about data engineering, and those steps that have to be taken to basically get your data into a single location and get it ready to be conditioned. Then the data conditioning itself and the wrangling and the tagging and the prep work that needs to go in. Then it's the model engineering, model development, model validation, and then it's basically insight. And then what do you do with that insight? And how do you leverage that insight? And is it dynamic triggers to do something else? Is it reporting? A whole host of capabilities and options. All of that exists natively in our cloud provider's ecosystem. And it's a wonderful thing. I see it as a great accelerant, but I also see it as a liberator, because what the cloud providers have also done for us is they've simplified the complex in many ways. You know, it used to be if you were a developer, you would have to create a virtual machine in a cloud, and you would have to manage that virtual machine, and you would have to deal with the security footprint, and you'd have to permissions and the monitoring and so on and so forth. Now you can consume that if you're a developer and not have to worry about any of that. Likewise for AI. So quite exciting. The other thing our cloud providers do for us is they scale it. So if you think about the fact that, okay, I may have a big data problem or I may have a small niche use case, doesn't matter. The cloud providers have made sure that the scaling is built in day one into that set of tool and that pipeline. And then they help us orchestrate it as well. They've got ready-built capabilities, translation, speech to text, text to speech, visual analysis of imagery, analysis of video content. Quite impressive. And of course, natural language processing. We're going to see so much of this embedded even more in our daily lives than we see today. And of course, the IC is very interested in using it to its full extent as we start to leverage more and more cloud capabilities. So I see it as an accelerant. And what I would say to my colleagues across government, for those that have been a bit timid about exploring some of these capabilities, you've got to harness the people, turn them loose in this, and let them basically have a sandbox to learn and grow and play and get comfortable with these capabilities. Thank you.
Okay, so we've heard from each of the panelists. Let's see, does anyone have any questions? You want to come up to the mic? So
He's like, ah.
So hi, my name's Dave Mihalsic. I'm a retired DISA guy. I was Rob's boss at one point. Before that, I was a Navy lab
so watch
guy.
out.
So I asked a question of Lieutenant General Skinner and some of his senior staff at an AFC event a number of months ago, and it pertained to the DoD provisional authorization process. And in my current role, I do some consulting, and what I hear from many of our industry partners is it is impossible to get through the door to get your software as a service approved at the IL4, IL5, and IL6 level. What they tell me is they are turned away at the door because the line is so long. And unless you're one of a number of very big names that I think we all know, you can't get in there. And this is hurting innovation, right? Because software as a service is an opportunity to get capability to the end user and the warfighter almost immediately. So I just like your thoughts on how we can address this problem, how we can unleash the innovation in industry as a software as a service to get more capabilities out there more quickly. Thank you.
So, I'll start. I could not agree with you more. That we do have to take a look at that process and think about it in modern ways. We also have to rethink the concept of classification, the risk and consequence of loss of data, and the environment in which it lives on. Is that the right model going forward? If we're really focused on data and protecting data, then how do I do that the best job protecting that data with the best tools, which are not, most of which are not available to us on our higher level fabrics. And so that is the debate we're having internal to the Navy. There are some, we're going to do some piloting in this arena, demonstrate that we can potentially protect data in commercial environments and or lower level environments the same way we would protect it at a higher level, because we do see that the speed at which these technologies in the DevSecOps environment. Dave and I worked on a paper on this very topic of, does everything have to be done on the high side because of exfiltration of data? Or are there ways to do it in lower environments or in commercial environments that give us the confidence that our information is safe? And then, to your question, allow us to explore all of the tools and software as a service and even offerings in our commercial cloud providers that we're using that aren't available to us today because of that provisional authority process.
And I would love to say we have an answer. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I would love to say we have the answer to this very complicated problem. We need to work this hard because it is slowing us down.
Yeah.
So here you have this beautiful accelerator from our cloud providers, and then you have our process to assess and authorize and grant an ATO of capabilities or new software to add to the portfolio. Because I agree with your premise. Software-defined everything is not too far, away from where we are today. And software, of course, is very malleable and tailorable. So, this is a challenge we have to address. I wish I had an answer. I think it's going to require partnerships, probably with some academic institutions as well as industry, to figure out how to modernize this process.
I was going to add to that, having been there's more ways to get through that door.
That's
having
right.
been the CISO of one of the federal agencies, I've sponsored entities for their ATO. And so I think one of the problems you see here is that reciprocity from the federal side to the DoD side. And so that might be a culture issue that I think we need to take on behalf of industry as well, because I recognize the line is long, but that reciprocity issue, also the innovation, we have an entire innovation ecosystem that we invite you to participate in, so we need to make it easier for you to do that. With the Air Force, we have Project Holodeck, which we have AFWorks, CyberWorks, you name it. We have an entire ecosystem that we can go that route as well. And then again, that reciprocity from the federal civilian agencies who've already attested to the worthiness of the cybersecurity posture of that particular entity as well. So I think those are a couple of areas where we could kind of really help shorten the line, but I don't think the PATO is the only way, but I think we can go through the reciprocity from the civilian side as well. And I also think it's how you tell us the story. Sometime when industry comes to tell us a story, you have to tell me the problem you're trying to fix for us. What is the actual problem set we're talking about? Because you heard us talk about billions of dollars, but that sounds like a lot, but it's not. And it's over the fight up, right? And so when I have a fiscally constrained environment, and then I have talent, some of this is talent issues, I rely on you, so there's a partnership that's required, that I understand the problem. And so we try to communicate our problem sets, early and often, so that we can get some solutions to those problems. So I think there are some other ways that we can do that, if not through the innovation ecosystem, through the reciprocity process as well. I could speak from the Air Force perspective. So I would love to have a conversation about that if you need to.
So what I would add to all of the really incredibly good response here is the technology advancement, DevSecOps. We talk about DevSecOps, it sounds all complicated, but really it means speeding up the process, baking in cybersecurity into our software development through operation. And these are the things that we need to continue to advance. Cloud enables us to do that. We don't move to the cloud just for the sake of moving to cloud. So our software development practices need to improve, and that's really part of our software modernization implementation plan that we just released, is getting after is exactly what you're talking about, continuous authorization to operate, which is really basically baking in the cybersecurity once again. So these are the processes we are working on. The challenges are grand, but they are not impossible. Really, that's how the different processes like that are part of the technology piece that we need to attack to be able to get after what you're talking about. In addition, we don't need to repeat and continue to build infrastructure, for example. So infrastructure as code is the other piece that we need to start making a normal practice. So I will just leave you with that, that there's a technology piece, there's a process piece, there's a people piece, workforce piece. So there are challenges, but we're continuing to work them.
Okay, thank you. So more questions from the group. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Kali Saul from AWS. So thank you all for being here. So I'm part of the team that actually works with Air Force Intel, with Colonel Majesty and those folks in Cyber Command. So my question for each of you is, us as cloud service providers, what is your priority that we can be doing for you? How can we be actually helping to actually help onboard and accelerate your cloud journey?
I can start. Again, I think JWCC is an incredible good start, right? Where we have set out to really accelerate everything we just talked about at all classification levels, direct interactions with the CSPs. But also, it's not leaving out the integrators. So there is a lot of work to be done there, not just from our side, but also from you all, from the CSP side. So I think we have all the goodness that we need to start really very close collaboration to make sure that you're taking our requirements to everything we're talking about, DevSecOps and Zero Trust and these other things to really bring to the table all of the requirements that we've set forth to work with us. So I really believe we have what the requirements in place, and now it's time for us to just get moving.
I'm going to say strategically partner with us.
Yeah.
Come and talk to the CIOs about what they're thinking about cloud, in, that big roadmap picture, what kind of is our strategy, what problems we're trying to solve. Again, can I store different levels of classified data in one environment? How would I do that? What are there tools that would do that for me? We are trying to think out of the box about how we could leverage cloud, make it more efficient and effective for usage. I am very interested in cloud architecture. Tell me what your other partners or industry partners are doing that leverage your environments. How do they put their architecture together? What are their business processes and rules? Those are things, basic cloud management inside an organization of 800,000 people in the Navy. Right now we are the Wild West. Everybody's buying cloud and building cloud for their particular application or activity. I don't think that's a sustainable model. And so JWCC, again, we're going to be a hybrid on-prem and in the cloud environment. And we're going to want to have strategic partners from the commercial industry helping us design what that looks like and how to make it effective.
And I think you could help us with the data sovereignty issue that we've talked about for a while, right? Right now, today in our GovCloud, we have the requirements, U.S. personnel within the U.S. fence, the fence line of the bases. And so how do you help us culturally get over that? Because that decision was made at a time and for a reason. But now when I go to fight, yes, I fight jointly, but I also fight with my coalition partners. And so how do I then make sure that I could share that cloud environment with them, but make sure that I have the right protections, that there's an information CDS, across domain solution to make sure that information, even at that classification level, is not, compromised within. And so you can help us, understand that and all the providers, per se on that we could be more risk, take more risk because the environment has changed. When we set those requirements up for ITAR and the cloud CR, SRG and all those other requirements to have GovCloud, we need to think differently about it. So help us and tell us what you're doing so that we can then talk as a leadership and understand the real risk behind it so we can make different risk-based decisions. Yes, in reverse policy. So I think that would be helpful.
And I'm going to build upon the strategic partnership for just a moment and talk about, so what does that really mean to me? Mm-hmm. What that means to me is that when you're a strategic partner, there's a shared value equation. And for me, that means try to help us avoid some of the vendor lock that we could encounter if we're not careful in our cloud journey. The reality is there's plenty of data to host, there's plenty of compute to host, there's plenty of opportunity for all the cloud providers between the DoD and the IC. Okay, so this isn't about winning market share. This is really about helping the department and helping the IC garner the best value it can from the set of cloud providers that are available to us. And that means having a willingness to think about, what's the greater good for the taxpayer, the greater good for the IC, the greater good for the department. And that's not always locking us into something that's very unique to a specific provider, that's proprietary, where you get in and it gets very, very difficult to find your way back out. So please, that would be one way to help is the world is hyper-converged. It's kind of like networks. And cloud providers are part of that equation. So that means that we've got to figure out how to work together as partners, and as a strategic partner, help us optimize the opportunity that's before us with all the cloud providers.
Excellent.
Okay, I think we have about 15 more minutes, so I think we can get a quick question in, and then I'll give the panelists the time to do a closing statement.
Hey, good morning. Dondre with Emerald Technical Solutions. Have you extrapolated any information that correlates to best practices, maybe knowledge bases for individuals and organizations that are onboarding, right? My business has been an early adopter of AFC, Sea Army, and a lot of those onboarding processes for my customers to get from a bare metal, or on-premise infrastructure to the cloud natively, and work through all the native cloud applications that go and play into the whole big picture has been absolutely brutal, right? We got them there, right, and that's okay. But with you guys coming in kind of as a newer group, what are you doing to ensure that process is a little smoother? And as we know, a lot of government processes are slow, right? But we're talking about, if we talk about data centricity and we talk about the things and that fast capability for the warfighter, right, for all branches, how are you guys handling that? Thank you.
Go ahead, Jane.
So I think that is one of our biggest challenge areas of onboarding workloads to the cloud, and everyone has to relearn it because they're doing it themselves. So our answer to that, and it's in its nascent stages, is we want to move to an enterprise services model, operating model for all of our IT services, our naval enterprise services, to include cloud management, cloud delivery, cloud onboarding. And so we are establishing what we call right now the Neptune Cloud Management Office to do just that, kind of be that place where you come, what cloud's available, what cloud is authorized to be used in our environments, and then there are people that can help you onboard your workloads, either whether they're contracted and or actual civilians in the Department of Navy, to be determined. It'll be obviously a hybrid of that. And we're also looking at things like our Black Pearl initiative, which is really set up to be kind of that, I want to get into DevOps, I want to get into cloud. Can you help me start to set that up? So the same as onboarding in the cloud, how do I establish that pipeline if I need a separate pipeline, or where do I go and get a pipeline that can meet my needs in software development in the DevOps process? So I think we're behind. I think it's a really hard problem. I think we lack a lot of workforce, which is the other reason why, Dave mentioned this, we need to think smartly about the business model of delivering cloud, of managing cloud in the Department of Navy and across the Department of Defense, because there just aren't enough resources for us all to have inside every program office a set of cloud folks, cloud experts. And so our business model really needs to reflect the fact that that workforce is prime, and the skill sets we're looking for are sought after everywhere.
And from the Air Force perspective, that's a good question. We did a couple of things. So right now today, when our Cloud One, we're a cloud service. If you wanted, IaaS a pass, you come to the door, and you could get any one of the vendors that we have in our multi-vendor cloud. And we have a process called Kickstarter. And so we have an integrator that helps you do that. But what we quickly learned was that, one, the process was slow, to your point, and two, that we didn't have the talent within the program offices to help with that onboarding. And so we went into this project called Race to the Cloud, where we signed CRADAs, or cooperative research agreements, with a couple of cloud vendors to look through our process and do a comparison to help us understand where the way industry does onboarding, because they do this all the time, and where there are gaps in our particular onboarding process. And so we're waiting on the outbrief of that so we can make changes to our process for that reason. But the other thing is we need to make that shift, as Jane talked about, that we're not just a cloud service. We want to be the front door as a cloud broker, meaning that even if someone wants SaaS, they should come through the front door. One, it gives us the opportunity to understand where all of our cloud assets are, which is reportable through FISMA, and making sure we understand where all our data is, and then again, making sure that we can get that bulk buy-in and get those discounts and efficiency and effectiveness of using the cloud. So I think some of the things, what we're doing from our Cloud One perspective in the Air Force, that's going to help us get better and extrapolate the lessons that you talked about from industry.
I think from an enterprise standpoint, I was actually going to mention the military department's very solid and developed cloud environment or platform, which they described very, very well. So that needs to be translated also up to the enterprise level that's looking at the entire department. And the Hosting and Compute Center, DISA, is the program office for JWCC, and they actually are instituting some of these best practices you're talking about as we implement JWCC, working with the military departments and the rest of the department. When we look at the challenge you describe is real. It's not easy, it's complex because we are a big department. So it is a journey. And in addition, I think everyone sort of touched on this, the workforce. That's our biggest challenge in my view, because we need to get the workforce to get used to, it's a cultural shift, but also really that we need to give them the equipment, we need to equip them to be able to use cloud. We are trying to move to the cloud, commercial cloud, to have them be able to focus on their mission. However, they still need to use the capabilities. So I think there is a lot of work to be done there, upskilling, whether internal or getting help from you all to try and get our workforce in a better place to start using cloud and services. So I really appreciate that question because it is a hard one.
And then the one thing I'll just add in an IC perspective, and then I'll be short and brief. What the IC recognized, when we awarded C2E, shortly thereafter, we also awarded a follow-on contract with SAIC called SIM, Cloud Integration Multi-Cloud Management. What that contract does for us is it gives an organization an avenue to seek third-party counsel on their cloud integration activities, and basically get consultancy and advice on which cloud to provision what types of services, which cloud is best suited for certain use cases, etc. So I think that's another avenue. Cloud brokering, governance, I think having a third-party integrator that's independent of the individual equities of a single cloud provider is important to be part of your team as well. So we're looking forward to seeing that manifest itself within the IC.
Okay, so I think we only have about 9 minutes left so I wanted to give the panelists ability to do a closing statement, and I'll start here with Mr. Salvanini. But it's been a great conversation, right? And I wish we had a lot more time. We've talked about several of the challenges, from cloud onboarding to data sovereignty to workforce to accreditation and provisional authorizations. But also, I think a lot of the conversation was really on where are we going next? And so I wrote down where information dominance, AI and machine learning, zero trust, CIPRNet 2.0, edge computing, and continuous authorization as focus areas. So each of the panelists, from your perspective, in your space, where are we, where we're going, and what are your focus areas to take this conversation to the next steps?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity to offer closing comments. So one of the things I neglected to share in response to the last question was there's another dimension to this cloud journey right now, at least for the IC, and that is that we have great familiarity with one of the cloud providers. And with that great familiarity comes a comfort. In other words, we have a workforce that understands and can speak Amazon services because we've had a 10-year relationship with Amazon. Okay, and we've also got to figure out how to allow our workforce to think beyond Amazon, because there's a lot of possibilities available to us outside of what Amazon brings to the fight. So that's something else our SIM contract will help us with. But we also have to encourage our workforce to look at the other cloud providers, break away from what they're currently comfortable with, and start looking at some of the other capabilities and learn the vernacular with the other cloud providers as well. I'll talk about one other area that's of particular interest and concern for us as we move forward, and we're putting a fair bit of effort into this in partnership with our DoD colleagues, and that's Cloud Edge. We see Cloud Edge as probably, as we look at the landscape going forward, probably one of the more vulnerable areas within our ecosystem. And why is that? That's because, they're smaller sites, they're often disadvantaged from a comms perspective, and we have to be very, very smart about how we deliver capability to the edge. And when we look at our acquisition contracts, we think about the fact that we oftentimes will, award a contract to deliver capability, and you could have every contract that's delivering capability at the edge roll their own edge solution, their own edge hosting solution for data, their own edge hosting solution for compute, etc. And that can create a lot of siloing if we're not careful. So in partnership with DoD, we're doing a lot of work to basically address that and make sure we don't get ourselves into problems. We certainly don't want two edge capabilities having a phone back home through the states to talk to each other. So that hairpinning problem is one, but there's many other problems associated with this as well. So if we can develop an edge standard where there's a hosting environment that can support capabilities across clouds, then that, I think, becomes far better for the community as we look as we go forward. And if we can tell our contractors who are developing capabilities for us that they can expect that to be there, and they can have an expectation of performance and service level from that capability, they will be far more comfortable deploying to that environment. So thank you very much.
Ms. Ruffin.
Dave, those were all great comments, and I'm just going to build on those. So the information security vision, securely move information from anywhere to anywhere at the speed of relevance. If that needs to be driving everything that we're thinking about on how we want to leverage all of these great capabilities, I think there's plenty of room for plenty of providers out there. Standards and guardrails are going to be critical. For example, if it's containerization is the word we use, everyone's got to accept containers. I can't have any proprietary tags on containers that would not let me move information from anywhere to anywhere. The cloud at the tactical edge, we might decide on a single solution for that. For efficiency, effectiveness sake, I didn't say we're going to, just an example. But then I need to be able to move information from anywhere to anywhere into that cloud environment and then back again. There is a lot of work to do in, just like we do for any major warfighting activity, whether it's ship operations, land operations, air operations, we build tactics and procedures, we build ConOps on how we're going to actually carry out the mission. This is no different. We have to treat our IT, our maneuverability of data, the way we treat all of our other warfighting capabilities, and really focus and hone in on those tactics and procedures and the ConOps and the rules of engagement and what the standards and guardrails are going to be, so that we can have that optimal state, which is information from anywhere to anywhere securely at the speed of relevance.
It's a good one.
Oh, good. So now I'm going to build on you and myself. And I want to just reiterate a couple of things. Just imagine I'm a logistician. I'm in the Air Force. I go down range, and I need to make sure that I can get supplies in the theater. I need to have the data there. I need to have the application there. I need to have the data there. But now add to the fact that I also have a coalition partner that I need to integrate with as well. So I need to have a cloud that allows me to do that is secure, that is within our risk tolerance. And so not only am I talking about the interoperability and integration with my joint partners, my male devs, but also now with my partners who have varying levels of technology maturation. And so I have to take that into consideration as well, which is why we talk about this hybrid environment. But I also want to make sure that I can partner with you. When we looked at UCOM and you heard our space chief of space operations talk about using Starlink. And there was a surprise to the industry that, I didn't know that my capability was going to be weaponized. And so partners, we are going to need you to help us when we're in those environments and we're using your capabilities. So make sure that we understand, we both understand what are our limits there amongst each other. And then also be transparent with us about what your risk is and then your third party, because that matters to us, because we have already guardrails and standards that we put in place on those third party vendors and maybe development industry equipment that we just don't use. And so we want to make sure that we're clear on the risk in its totality amongst us all. And so also remember that, one department, two services. Now I know Jane has done that for a while, but our Space Force, they have the largest AOR. And so now as they start to build and modernize their capabilities as well, you will see them move more into the cloud. So how do I make sure that they have what they need as well? So help us with that from a ground-based services perspective on my Space Force side. And then, of course, JADC2 that we all play in as well. We have within the Air Force Lou Cropsey, who manages our PEO, and he's the integrator of them all across the entire DAF to make sure that the Air Force provides that capability. And so he just awarded a contract, our battle management contract. And so taking a look at that and understanding the needs that he has there as well is going to be helpful. But at the end of the day, this is a whole of nation when we talk about the defense that we do of the nation. And so we definitely need your input, and we want you to tell us when we're wrong. Don't be afraid to tell us that we're not doing it right. Don't bring your capability and allow me to change it. Bring it as you have it and use it so that I can use it in its form. And the last piece we talked about, talent. I don't compete with talent just amongst myself. I have to compete with talent that with the mil depths, I compete for talent, of course with you industry, but also, so what we've done in the Air Force, I'm also the functional manager for the 12,000 civilians that do IT and cyber. And so what we've done, talking about that upskill and that retooling using digital university. And so where you have capabilities that I can leverage because I have a partnership with you, bring that to me as well so that I can make sure that I can give these capabilities, tools, and opportunities to our civilians. So I think from our perspective, thank you for today. I think it's been a good conversation. I look forward to chatting with you more about where the Air Force is going with the cloud and our cloud journey and all of our challenges.
And I'm not going to repeat every wonderful things that my colleagues said here, but I think you've picked up a theme of we're bringing our past and present and trying to marry it up with the future. And really, the people you see sitting here, we're the glue trying to make that happen. And it's not easy, and it requires all of us. And you've heard the challenges, workforce, it's really our people. Without the people, we're not going to be able to accomplish what we set out to do. So really, we need your partnership. We need academia, our DIB partners, and really the strong partnership, as you see here, within the Department of Defense, but also our federal partners and just as a nation. So I really thank you for this time.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks to the audience for the excellent questions. Thanks for AFCEA to bringing us together. Thank you for our industry partners, but most of all, thank you to our senior leadership here for driving the department forward with digital modernization and urgency of action. So thank you.
All right.